Will you join me in prayer before we get started? Lord, thank you so much for this day and the breath in our lungs and the opportunity we have to gather in this place on a beautiful Saturday afternoon. Lord, we are so grateful that you are raising up the next generation, and God, more specifically, a generation of young women who are passionate about your truth, Lord, not only to know it, but to speak it and live it. I pray that you would rise more up to the challenge and that your name would be the name that is glorified in this place. In Jesus' name, amen.
Capitol really seems like an appropriate place, you may be seated, to hold today's competition. Great things have happened all over our country in state houses just like this, everywhere. In smaller towns, in smaller states, in larger states, all over the country, people gather and understand what our freedoms mean and where our freedoms come from our Creator. We have the most enduring constitution of any country in the world, and that's why the topic of speaking proudly is derived from the preamble of that document. I have a few housekeeping rules, and I have to tell you, I haven't done any live speaking in over 2 years, well, almost 2 years. So bear with me if I make a big boneheaded mistake and you see both shoes in my mouth. But the basic housekeeping rules are ones you all know. Please silence or turn off any electronic devices. This is important for 2 reasons. Number 1, this competition is being live streamed by our friends, compliments of Alpha News. And secondly, we want no disruptions as the finalists deliver their speeches. It's difficult enough to get used to the acoustics in this building. We want to make sure that your cell phone ringing the Star-Spangled Banner doesn't disrupt them. And before we begin, I'd like to just take a moment to let our young competitors know, once again, how delighted we are that you took up this challenge to come here today and speak. This is no easy thing to do. Our Constitution is a complex document, and selecting a topic, defending your thoughts in a clear and concise way, it's a really daunting task. I don't need to tell you that, though. You all did it. But learning to speak early in life and in public, it's one thing to do it in front of your bedroom mirror. It's another thing to do it in front of lots of people and knowing you're going to be on TV. It'll help equip you in the future in ways you can't even dream about today. But let me tell you, it's a really important skill to have. And you'll never regret the skills that you learned by doing what you did. I like to tell people I don't believe in participation trophies. I like to tell everyone personally what a great job you did. And you'll have the self-confidence of knowing I can get up in front of a group of people and defend our Constitution. I run a state-based think tank, and one of the things I've learned is I meet with a lot of people who are very, very successful all over this country. And they all like to tell you things when it's just the 2 of you in a room that you never dreamed. And the most important thing I think I've learned in the 10 years since the Freedom Foundation was formed was this. I had a CEO look me right in the eye and tell me, I can't defend capitalism. Think about that for a second. This guy runs a Fortune 100 company here in the Twin Cities. And he said, I go to these dinner parties and suddenly some new little leftist will pipe up and say something terrible about capitalism and how it's destroying our country and how our Constitution is wrong and this and that. And he said, and I know that I should be saying something, but I don't know what to say. Young ladies, y'all know what to say. And you'll say it proudly from here on through the rest of your life. So thank you for taking time to study and learn and participate. Now, on to the final round. During the course of the previous rounds, nearly 30 judges, they're listed in your program, have heard our young competitors from all over the state. We thank those judges for their willing ears and discerning minds as they've helped select the 3 finalists that you'll hear from this afternoon. As we begin this rotunda experience, as they call it, everything is an experience today, isn't it? I like that. It's my pleasure to introduce the final round judges in no particular order. We're going to start with Dr. King Banyan, who is a professor of economics and the dean of the School of Public Affairs at St. Cloud State. He hosts the King Banyan Show on Business Radio 1440 AM and co-authors the St. Cloud Quarterly Business Report and has written books and numerous articles about business and economics. Here's a man who can defend capitalism. He also served in the Minnesota State House of Representatives. Thank you, Dr. Banyan. Kim Crockett is a lawyer, writer, and advocate who works with American Majority, the Election Integrity Network, and Minnesota Voters Alliance. She chairs For Kids and Country, which fights to restore America's schools and culture. While raising her now 2 adult children, she was a full-time and part-time stay-at-home mom. Thank you, Kim. Dr. Terry Flower, good to see you. Also a former university professor, a Hall of Fame educator, aviator, astronomer, and international lecturer, author, traveler, former school board, and Metropolitan Council member. My deepest condolences to you for that final one. Thank you, Dr. Flower. Kathy Kirsten is also one of our judges, a senior policy fellow at Center of the American Experiment and former columnist for the Star Tribune. She holds a BA from Yale University and a JD from the University of Minnesota. Thank you, Kathy. Don Parker, good to see you. A lobbyist with Minnesota Citizens Concern for Life and an organizational specialist with New York State Right to Life. He formerly taught and coached high school and college level speech. Previously, he was the development director for National Right to Life and editor of Good Age magazine. And finally, Kendall Qualls, president of Take Charge, which strives to unite Americans regardless of background towards a shared history and common set of beliefs. Former U.S. Army officer, he spent 27 years in the healthcare industry leading global marketing and sales teams. He and his wife, whom you just met, have been married for 35 years and have 5 wonderful children. Thank you for your time, all of you. Before I call the first competitor to speak, I've been asking to read verbatim, so here you go, the rules of competition. Feels so important here. Competitors will deliver in English a persuasive speech of up to 8 minutes in length. No visual aids or props may be used. A script or note cards are permitted. Use of cell phone, pagers, or other electronic devices by anyone during the round is strictly forbidden. No audio recording, videography, or still photography is permitted during the round except by credentialed members of the press. Speeches will be timed by Sarah Patzlaw. Please stand, Sarah. This is who to watch, ladies. Please be aware that in consideration of the acoustics of the rotunda, speakers will be given an additional 30 seconds of speaking time in the final round. The timekeeper, Ms. Sarah, will show cards at 8 minutes and 8 1/4 minutes. The stop card will be shown at 8 1/2 minutes. Please don't make me get a hook. Each speaker will also be given a short quote to read to provide an opportunity to familiarize herself with the sound. This is not part of the judge competition. So y'all realize that. Now that we've gone through all of that, are there any questions from our competitors? If not, I believe we are ready to go. And we are not ready to go, so you're going to listen to me for 1 more minute. It says here, kill time. Let me tell you, people, you are talking to the master killer timer of all time. I don't know how long I have, but I'm going to try to sneak in the best story you'll hear all day. It's absolutely true. So probably about 15 years ago, Minnesota was honored to host, don't do this, Chairman David Hand, if you get the chance, don't do this, to host the Midwest Republican Leadership Conference here. It's every year, it rotates around the states in the Midwest region of the Republican National Committee. And so we thought President George Walker Bush had just been elected. We are going to have the biggest, baddest convention ever in the history of this, and we did put on quite a show. It started with a luncheon featuring the vice president at that time, Dick Cheney. Unbeknownst to us, Dick Cheney had just been featured in a pretty nasty sketch on Saturday Night Live the Saturday before. And he had flown in directly from an overseas trip where he slept and literally got off the plane at Minneapolis St. Paul Airport and came down to the Minneapolis Convention Center straight there to give his welcoming speech to our luncheon. I'm out there doing the happy welcome to everyone, and you're going to have to wait to hear the end of this. Let's just say, to this day, when Dick Cheney sees me, he still remembers what happened, and so do I. We're going to... But this is why you're really here. So we're going to get started. These have been drawn at random. Speaker number 1, as you can see, extremely official. And I am going to call a number, and a young lady is going to come up here. Remember, she's going to read a quote, and then she's going to begin her remarks. And we are going to start with number 104.
Before my speech, first, a quote from Thomas Jefferson. "Natural rights are the objects for the protection of which society is formed and municipal laws established." American author H.P. Lovehart was known for saying that the oldest and strongest emotion of mankind is fear. And he was right. Whether it's heights, spiders, failure, or public speaking, everyone has something that scares them. But what do Americans fear most? Well, you might think the answer would be something like snakes or clowns, but no. According to a recent study by Chapman University, 6 of the top 10 most common fears amongst Americans today are political, with the number 1 being corrupt government officials for 6 years running. Thomas Jefferson once said that when the people fear the government, there's tyranny. But when the government fears the people, there's liberty. And this may be true. But what happens when the people fears the government fears the people, and the government also fears pretty much everything else? Indeed, fear now holds profound power over the very highest levels of governance, and it is cancerous. So when we discuss rising to the challenge of building a more perfect union, it's imperative that we come to truly understand the enemy that is fear. And today we'll do just that. First, by analyzing our government's fear of repeating the past. Second, its fear of losing power in the present. And finally, the issues of the future it's causing us to overlook. Now, it is said that we must be sure to learn from our past so as not to repeat it. And to some degree, this notion is not only defendable, it's truthful. But when our nation's determination to learn from our history becomes a fear-based fixation, we have cause for concern. And nothing embodies this truth more perfectly than the allocation of our Department of Defense spending, because the Congressional Budget Office quantifies that in the next decade, the United States plans to spend $634 billion on bettering and evolving our 5,500-strong nuclear arsenals. And to this, I ask, why? And my criticism is corroborated by a study by Michigan Technological University when they find that just 100 nuclear warheads are needed for deterrence in the worst-case scenario, and the use of any more in a war would likely lead to the retaliation that would kill pretty much all of U.S. society. So then I ask, why? Does the United States insist upon expending hundreds of billions of dollars to maintain enough nuclear weapons to destroy humanity? And the answer is fear. The United States, institutionally, is so scared of returning to a place where we feared we would lose that it is consuming our present. And this is illustrated by David Rothkopf in his book, The Great Questions of Tomorrow, when he writes that the Cold War has literally frozen the United States in the past. The conflict may have ended in 1989, but its competitive nuclear spirit lives on in the US military mentality. And this fear we see permeating throughout all of US governance. So much so that we even see its grasp within current policy decisions. Because it is an undeniable fact that politicians fear losing power in the present. And thus, to maintain it, they often lock themselves in what I like to call the party box, the traditional values of what it means to be a member of a party. And this is evidenced by Francis Lee, professor at the University of Maryland, when he writes that now, today, more than ever, we see politicians being loyal to their parties to an increasing degree. Between 1950 and 1970, politicians in the Congress voted with their party on divisive issues just over 60% of the time. However, since 2000, that number has increased to a monumental 90% of the time and growing. But what does this mean? Well, practically speaking, it has made compromise a thing of the past. NPR contextualizes that bipartisan compromise wasn't always unusual, but Before the 1990s, no major piece of domestic legislation, from the original Social Security Act to the creation of the interstate highway system, was passed without bipartisan support. But now, we have politicians who no longer solely pass or fail legislation because of its merits for the constituency, but because of party optics. Who proposed the legislation? Because of the politicians' optics, because they are so scared that if they skew from their party's beliefs, not only will they lose power, but ultimately re-election. And this sentiment is illustrated perfectly by former Minnesota Representative Bill Frenzel when he explains that the electorate is unhappy, impatient, and eager to devour its representatives at the least sign of weakness or impurity from the party. So what do you get? Politicians who power posture and solutions that are little more than band-aids for bullet wounds. And so, our politicians have no time to pose the great questions of tomorrow, the issues of the future. So let's do it. Right now. It is high time that we gave the issues of the future the stage. And now it's time that we do that. So hopefully, we can find some ground to move past our fear. Now, in the last couple of months, we have heard a lot about the withdrawal of troops from Afghanistan, leading to the end of what the media calls America's longest war. But what if I told you that the United States has been in a different kind of war for 33 years? A cyber war. Indeed. As of 2018, the United States is cyber attacked 30 million times a year, or 82,000 a day. That's nearly 350 times since I started speaking. And yet, Washington largely sidesteps the issue. For example, earlier this year, the United States celebrated its renewal of the New START agreement, a plan with Russia to marginally reduce the ceilings on nuclear capabilities. And now I bring this up less about the policy itself than the fact that the United States happily sat at that table to discuss the technologies of 60 years ago while ignoring that we had just surpassed the 1-year anniversary of Russia's SolarWinds cyber attack on the United States. An attack that compromised major US companies like Microsoft and Intel, not to mention the Pentagon, State Department, and Treasury. And yet, we continue with diplomacy without retaliation. I hope you see the point I'm trying to make. The United States is looking so far in the wrong direction that we let major threats to national security go unpunished and ultimately are forgotten. And this is just one example of our distraction from critical issues. Income inequality is rising, social mobility is falling, environmental degradation is increasingly present, and these are just some of the trends. Now, I don't just list these to ruin everyone's day, but these are major bipartisan issues that we have no solid solutions for. I simply wish to make the point that the past is educational, the present is valuable, and the future can be malleable if we can just get past our fear long enough to focus forward. So where does this leave us? Where do we go from here? Well, as of late, the United States has failed to put our future first, and thus, fear has gained a stranglehold. David Rothkopf put it best when he said that it's time for us to start coming up with, if not the right answers, then at least the right questions. And that's the first step, so that hopefully, one day we can overcome our fear and just go back to being scared of spiders. Thank you.
I'm just thankful I don't have to follow her. But speaker number 2 does, and I will now open this envelope. Speaker number 2 is contestant number 105. Wow, right next door, excellent.
Okay, okay, my quote is from James Madison. The rights of persons and the rights of property are the objects for the protection for which government was instituted. On September 6, 2016, When asked what she would do if Donald Trump won, comedian Amy Schumer said, "I'll need to learn to speak Spanish because I will move to Spain." I mean, how can she commit to learning Spanish if she can't even commit to living in this country? Well, Trump did win, and Amy still lives here. Shocker. Our country feels more polarized than it ever has in my lifetime. Granted, I wasn't alive during the Civil War, but if one election can cause the Canadian immigration website to crash from so many Americans trying to be expats, what does that say about our commitment to a more perfect union? This phrase from the penman of the Constitution himself, Morris Governor, was referencing how the Constitution was an improvement from the Articles of Confederation. However, a more perfect union also signifies that America is forever on the journey of self-improvement. This journey cannot happen if our two-party government refuses to work together. Political polarization will prevent our democratic republic from functioning the way it was penned in the Constitution. While I speak a foreign language, I don't want to leave the country. Unlike Schumer, I commit to things. And today, I'm committed to continuing our journey to a more perfect union. We will first set sail and explore the rocky shores of political polarization. Then, we'll discover how it is dooming our quest for a more perfect union, before finally arriving at our destination of perfecting the good old USA. The dangers of political polarization were on the minds of our forefathers when they crafted our Constitution. As John Adams said, "A division of the republic into two great parties is to be dreaded as a great political evil." Are you red or blue? Would you call yourself a Democrat or a Republican? If you're unsure, don't worry. Your cell phone knows. A cleverly designed algorithm specifically gives you news articles, opinion columns, and bogus articles that all already agree with your point of view. While Adams could have never envisioned the divide that electronic devices could create through influencing our view of the world, he understood just how dangerous it was if our republic became two uncivilized factions that refused to work together towards solutions. Our brilliant system of government was devised because the Federalists and Anti-Federalists who had two very different ideas, were able to work together and compromise. For example, the Connecticut Compromise, which established our House and Senate, creating arguably the most effective model of a democratic republic. However, recently, we have been allowing ourselves to be influenced by social media bubbles, where everything we learn about the world falls into one of the two great parties that Adams warned us against. According to the Pew Research Center in 2016, more than half of Democrats say the Republican Party makes them afraid, while 49% of Republicans say the Democratic Party scares them. The perceptions between the two parties are creating an environment where working together is nearly impossible. Take, for instance, a 2020 CNBC report. Senate Democrats blocked Republicans' attempt to pass a $500 billion coronavirus stimulus bill. This stalemate in the Senate extends months of gridlock on Capitol Hill, while millions of Americans trying to afford food, housing, and keep their businesses open are left waiting for more federal aid during an economic crisis. Election year politics have jarred the legislative system. Feeling hopeless? Want to move to Spain now? I know this polarization in our country feels drowning, but we don't need to jump ship just yet. There are ways to overcome this, even though social media bubbles are pitting us against each other. And this all starts with our media habits. Take this tweet, for instance. Illegal immigration needs to be stopped. Based on what you think on the topic of immigration, some people might assume that this person is xenophobic and anti-immigrant because they have no context to who this person is or what made them have the opinion they have. This is a tweet from my uncle. And if you actually talk to him, instead of just seeing what he posted online, you would know he's an immigrant himself. He doesn't support illegal immigration because he thinks it's unfair to everyone else. He had to go through the whole difficult legal process just for someone else to skip the line completely and ahead of friends who he knows want to come here too. Ditch the device and get in discussions with real humans. Stop generalizing groups of people and actually talk to people and understand where they are coming from and why they believe what they do. This is by far the easiest way to combat polarization, which is why I have come up with a way to replace our political super PACs with human PACs. P, put down the phone, like actually put down the phone, and break out of your social media bubble. A, actually talk to people and understand where they are coming from before generalizing. C, compromise and work together. S, solve our polarization. So by P, putting down the phone, A, actually talking to people, C, compromising, and S, solving our polarization, we can replace our political super PACs with human PACs and get back on track to forming a more perfect union. So today, we left the shores of America and explored political polarization and social media before finally changing our minds and breaking out of our social media bubble and realizing just how important it is to work together as real humans. Our brilliant system of government was created through countless compromises, from the Federalists and Anti-Federalists, big states and small states, and more. All of these compromises helped to make America the amazing country it is today, which shows just how important it is we address the issue of political polarization in our country. Now, getting back to Amy Schumer, just because she can't commit to continuing the journey for a more perfect union doesn't mean we can't. We have all the tools we need to replace political super PACs with human PACs. And by implementing human PACs, we'll realize that at the end of the day, we all want the same thing, what's best for our country. Let's remember the wise words of George Washington. The alternate domination of one faction over another, sharpened by the spirit of revenge natural to party dissension, which in different countries and ages has perpetuated the most horrid enormities. Instead of being that horrid enormity, let's listen to Governor Morris Governor, and continue our journey to a more perfect union. Thank you.
Yeah, they keep getting better, ladies and gentlemen. Stay tuned for number 3, official envelope. And our final speaker of this afternoon is number 110.
Okay, my quote is a quote from John Adams. Our Constitution was made only for a moral and religious people. It is wholly inadequate to the government of any other. Today, the predominant viewpoint at most of our colleges is, unsurprisingly, liberalism. Specifically, 75% of state colleges, 94% of private colleges, and 100% of the Ivy Leagues are liberal institutions. These universities have been swept up in the progressive agenda. If you look at a college's mission statement, chances are exceedingly high that you find the word diverse in there somewhere. This usually means that they emphasize individuals who are a part of said underrepresented groups, like transgender students, for example. Time, money, and energy is put into protecting the voices of these students. I'm sure we've all heard the term safe space before. It's a space designated for marginalized individuals to come together, discuss their experiences, and, most importantly, hide away from people who think differently than them. I wonder why there's no safe space for conservatives. Since the predominant view on college campuses is liberalism, we're certainly an underrepresented group, yet you won't find any safe spaces protecting conservative voices on the average college campus. You see, these universities put so much effort into being diverse, and yet they ultimately fail to do so because they blatantly ignore diversity of thought. You can have people of all different backgrounds, races, genders, sexual orientations, but you will never truly achieve diversity until you have people voicing different opinions too. However, universities across the country silence conservatives and encourage liberals. I believe that both voices must be heard. In order to make the United States a more perfect union, we must protect the freedom of speech on our college campuses. In a study done by FIRE, 72% of conservative students reported that they felt the need to self-censor themselves. This is both in the classroom and just around campus. In class, they fear that disagreeing with a professor will lead to them getting a lower grade than they deserve. On campus, there's a fear of conflict with other students, and many are even worried about losing scholarships. Unfortunately, they're not worried for no reason. Many attempts have been made to silence our conservative students. One way they accomplish this is by not allowing conservative speakers on campuses. For example, California State University, LA tried everything in their power to prevent conservative speaker Ben Shapiro from appearing at a student-sponsored event on campus. The university actually charged the student organization an absurdly high fee because the topic of conversation was going to be controversial. This is just as unconstitutional as it is ironic because it attaches a price tag to the content of free speech. Universities don't just take action against organizations on campus, but individual students as well. Metro Voice News took a deeper look into this, and they found that at some universities, students can face punishment for things said in private conversations. If so-and-so decides something someone said was offensive, they can report what that student said to the university, and they could face disciplinary action, even expulsion. Conservative students are also silenced in the classroom. Turning Point USA shared how an English professor at Iowa State University told her students that they were not allowed to advocate against abortion, Black Lives Matter, or anything else that she deemed as offensive in her class or just in their papers. If they failed to do so, their grades would be impacted and they'd be dismissed from the class. The effects don't just stop with students' education, but their safety too. At Texas State University, when the student body president advocated for Governor Abbott's decision to lift the mask mandate, he was viciously attacked online. A Twitter account was created, releasing his personal phone number to the public, and he began receiving threats. One account even went as far as to state, "Can you assassinate a student body president too?" I don't know what scares me more, the statement itself or the fact that they attached the word to it. No wonder conservative students are often afraid to voice their opinions. I mean, I've even heard stories of people throwing rocks at them. How did we get here? How can universities and woke students openly silence others and strip them of their First Amendment rights? Some hearing this will argue that liberals too can feel the need to self-censor and hide their views on campus. While the circumstances are far less common than for conservative students, this does indeed happen. And I would argue that this too is a tragedy. The First Amendment applies to all Americans, and all students should be able to voice their views without having to fear for their education and even their lives. not just liberals, not just conservatives, everybody. But how do we get there? Ideally, we would have all colleges and universities protecting their students' rights. Campuses should embrace and ensure diversity of thought. Grades shouldn't be impacted based on someone's views, but their ability to defend those views. And threats made against students should be taken seriously by the campus. Recently, some colleges have taken steps towards protecting their students' First Amendment rights. In their 2020 greeting letter, the Dean of the University of Chicago stated, "Our commitment to academic freedom means that we do not support so-called trigger warnings, we do not cancel invited speakers because their topic might prove controversial, and we do not condone the creation of intellectual safe spaces." This university is now ranked #1 in the country for protecting its students' free speech. I hope that more colleges will take similar steps to protect their students' rights. As a current senior, I've been thinking about this a lot lately. It truly saddens me that in choosing a college, I have to take into consideration whether or not they will respect and protect my rights as an American citizen. This is not how our founding fathers wanted this nation to be. We have the right to our opinion, and it is our job as American citizens to protect the freedom of speech for all views. In order to make the United States a more perfect union, we must fight and protect the First Amendment, especially in the institutions that are educating America's future. Thank you.
Let me just say a collective wow for these three brave young ladies. And I also want to say thank you to all the other participants who are here. Y'all are brave and courageous and obviously very strong leaders. And I hope we hear more from you all in the near future. A round for those who did not give their speeches here. I'm going to go way off script here and ask, how many of you are in speech in high school right now? Debate, speech? Wow, wow. So we have a bunch of self-trained individuals. Good for you, good for you. Keep speaking and keep speaking proudly. I'm so proud of every one of you. It's just remarkable. You know, I did speech in high school. I did debate in college. I did it all. And, you know, nothing really prepares you for introducing the Vice President of the United States. You knew I'd get back to that, didn't you? Yeah, oh yeah. So I have a few minutes here while the judges finish their work. So you're going to hear about my worst little nightmare. You go through all this speech training, they teach you all this good stuff, and then they put you up in front of a stage with C-SPAN. Oh, did I mention C-SPAN was broadcasting this live, and 2,500 people in the audience waiting to eat their lunch? And me. I'm the only thing between all of this happening peacefully, basically. I'm going to introduce the Vice President, who's going to speak for 15 minutes. He's going to leave, and then lunch is served. So he flies in. We get word that his plane has landed at MSP. He's backstage, and on with the show. Everything is on time. I'm so happy. It's like, this is just going to be great. I get to introduce the Vice President of the United States. Let's just say that was the last happy moment of my day. What happened from there can only be called cataclysmic. As I mentioned, he was out of the country and did not know that Saturday Night Live had done a parody of him the previous week. And so he wanted to see the tape. And so one of his staffers had brought some sort of electronic device that had the Saturday Night Live sketch and said, oh, well, we'll show it to him backstage before he goes on. He has a few minutes. I have been told I have 10 minutes, very tight, to get through all the introductory remarks of the conference and introduce the Vice President. So let's just say I went through those 10 minutes of remarks in about 7.5 minutes on turbo speed. So now I'm looking around for the Vice President. He's nowhere to be found. I'm looking around for my co-MC, who has also fled the scene, and I realize I'm on my own. So I learned very early on, always carry a program with you. So I start killing time, and my killing time is, well, let's have an introduction of what you're in for this weekend, delegates that are here. And I thought I was going to die. This went on for 45 minutes. Yes. My mom used to always say I could talk to a wall. Let me tell you, you can't talk to a wall for 45 minutes. Even I couldn't. Pretty soon, at this point, I'm just desperate saying, you know, I have a co-MC. I'm sure he would have a few words to say to the crowd. And he is gone. He has like fled the building. He is nowhere to be found. I later on in the day found him, and he's like, I was having no part of that. That was yours, sister. Thank you for that act of courage. So after 45 minutes, I have run out of everything to say. I am just short of saying, let's do the Pledge of Allegiance again, and trying to think of what I can do to kill time when suddenly I see the Vice President's Chief of Staff come back and do this. And so I thought, okay, great. This is it. I introduced the Vice President, and I left, and I think I collapsed in a ball of sweat. I've never had anything so terrifying in my entire life. The Vice President came out, gave a great speech. Everybody loved him. Dinner or lunch was a little cold, perhaps, by that time, but we got through the day. And later on that afternoon, I ran into the Vice President's Chief of Staff and said, you want to just tell me what happened? And he said, and I can almost quote verbatim, the Vice President saw the video of Saturday Night Live, and he laughed so hard, he said, I've got to watch that again. And he watched it 3 times. He had no idea you were on stage, that the program had begun. He had no idea that he was due to speak. He was just having a good time laughing, and his staff was laughing with him, and we had no idea you were just dying up there. It's like, yeah, well, thanks a lot. I voted for him 3 years later, but it was everything I could to muster up to remember, I remember what you put me through. So all the speech classes in the world, ladies, doesn't make any difference. It's really what you do in that moment when sheer terror strikes you. And let me tell you, you all are well equipped from what you just showed us here today to endure that sheer terror. So I want to also introduce to you the rest of the girls who competed in this contest that did not speak today. These girls courageously accepted this challenge. And believe me, talking about the Constitution is not the easiest challenge. They came here today to compete. We can only imagine how much time, how much energy, how much research, how much analysis, writing, rewriting that went into their speeches. Did any of you give your speeches to a family member that's kind of sick of it by now? Yeah. My mom used to have this little trick. She had a bell that she'd ring every time I said, and I got so sick of that bell, I used to say I was going to hide it in her china hutch where she couldn't find it. But it did teach me not to say 30 times, I think was my record, by the way. The hours you spent rehearsing the speech showed, and we're so thrilled and wondering what it'd be like for each of you to speak in your state capitol. That's an experience that you will always have, and I'm so proud of you for rising to that experience. In our estimation, you are all winners, and you've all taken the first step in becoming women who will become our future leaders, who will no doubt lead rallies one day in this capitol. And I so look forward to saying, I heard her win, so thank you. And you're upholding the values of our great republic, so thank you. You've also provided a short video. I don't know any of your names or where you're from or anything. I hate calling somebody number 102. So we're going to learn where number 102, where they're from here watching this short video. The Speaking Proudly competitors, these are real girls from all across our state. So with great pleasure, I introduce you to the competitors of Speaking Proudly 2021.
Hello everybody. My name is Emily Lawrence, and I'm currently a senior at Eastridge High School in Woodbury, Minnesota. I did just want to say in this video that it is absolutely an honor to be chosen to participate in this competition. I am so excited to speak at the Capitol in October. And with that said, I hope everybody has a great day. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Elda Wanshura. I attend school at Liberty Classical Academy and live in Forest Lake.
I'm Alana Andrew from Mount Muskoka High School, and my hometown is Minnetrista, Minnesota. I'm so grateful to have been invited to speaking proudly and being able to learn lots of new things about our government right in our state capital.
Hi, my name is Noah. I'm from Orono High School in Orono, and I'm super excited to meet at the Capitol and see everyone's speeches.
Hello everyone, my name is Genevieve. I am from Melrose, Minnesota, and I am homeschooled. We call our home school Laetare Academy, and Laetare is Latin for be joyful. I am so happy to be here today. Thank you so much for having me.
My name is Sarah Klein, and I am a homeschooled high school senior from Rochester, Minnesota. I'm very passionate about truth, justice, and preserving America's founding values.
I am Olivia Wojon. I am from Thief River Falls, Minnesota, and I am a sophomore at Lincoln High School. And I have been in speech for almost 5 years now.
Hello, fellow Minnesotans. An avid lover of mock trial and all things debate. My name is Elizabeth Mitchell, and I'm a junior at Chesterton Academy in Hopkins.
Hi, my name is Jackie Lauer. I'm a freshman at Creighton Durham Hall, and I live in St. Paul, Minnesota.
Hi, my name is Grace Wackwitz. I am homeschooled, and I live in Burnsville, Minnesota.
Hello, my name is Kaylee Getter. I'm from Rochester, Minnesota, and I'm a senior in high school. I'm homeschooled, and I had a super fun time at the competition in 2019, and I'm so excited to do it again.
I'm Lily Im. I'm 17 years old, and I live in Wyoming, Minnesota. I'm a senior at Liberty Classical Academy in White Bear Lake, where I'm on the varsity volleyball and mock trial team.
Hi, I'm Sophia Duvall. I'm from Edina, and I'm a sophomore at Edina High School.
Well done, ladies, well done. I would also like to take a brief moment to thank everyone. There are thousands of volunteers that have put in time to make today possible. And until you do a speech contest like this, or an essay contest, or any really scholarship contest for high school students, you have no idea how much time and effort it takes. We are so grateful for all the thousands of volunteers who work to make this competition possible. Their dedication to make sure each girl here today would enjoy her experience, have an equal opportunity to compete, it's really admirable. To show how fair and how unbiased they have made this is really remarkable. And an event like this doesn't just happen overnight. There's hours and hours of planning and execution of today, getting me lost out of a parking lot and getting me over here. Hey, kudos to all the volunteers who put in some hours. I'd still be over in the Department of Administration wandering around with my cell phone going, I don't think I can get out of here. And the nice lady who helped guide me here from Burnsville, too. As I mentioned before, more than 30 judges were required to listen and rate all of the speeches given here today. As this competition comes to a close, there will have been nearly 48-minute speeches heard in the walls of this Capitol. To me, that's just sweet freedom ringing loudly. Thank you. Thank you very much. Interesting note, the judges who heard all these speeches are from all walks of life. They represent a variety of political thoughts and ideologies, but most importantly, for their diversity, they're united in one belief, and that's that young girls like all of you are really our future. We'd like to thank Alpha News for underwriting the Rotunda experience. They're also live streaming this event, helping to spread the news about this event for future participants. We'd also like to thank Ridgeway Companies for their assistance in the logistics of staging the Rotunda experience. You know, before I get on with the written thank you notes, I've got to also say I am so thrilled to see all these legislators that are here. And I'm going to start by naming them, and that's really a mistake because I'll miss somebody that I haven't spied. But we have Representative Kristen Robbins from Maple Grove, Representative Jim Nash from Waconia. I think I spy Representative Sandra Erickson from Princeton. Am I missing anyone? I bet every one of you was really excellent. I bet you beat me in speech contest. Y'all were so good. Now look at them. I'm so thankful that they care enough about our future, these young women, to come here today. So thank you for giving of your time. The other I'd like to recognize is our new state party chairman for the Republicans, David Han, is here. Our most excellent Republican National Committee woman, Barb Sutter, is here. I don't see your counterpart, so Max is, okay. Thank you all for taking time to come here. And now I'm going to get on to some more official thank yous. Members of the steering committee are all members of the Metro Republican Women, which is the largest club of the Minnesota Federation of Republican Women in the state. The club's support financially with volunteers is what makes this contest possible. The Minnesota Federation is a member of the National Federation of Republican Women, and this is a powerful source. If you ever get involved with an organization, let me highly recommend these women, because if you want to get something done, get a woman with a phone and a kitchen table and set her to it. She'll get it done. And I would really be remiss if I didn't give a heartfelt thanks to all the donors who invested financially, not only for the scholarships, but all of the process that's needed to stage a competition like this. When we contribute whatever we can all accomplish great things together. Please know that their support really made today possible, so thank you. And finally, because of the unique arrangements today, we'd really like to thank the Minnesota State Administrative Staff and the Minnesota State Historical Society for their assistance in coordinating this glorious venue. Isn't it just a thrill to be in our state capitol? A couple of years ago, I did an event here, and I cannot tell you how many people said, and it really almost brings me to tears to this day. I'm turning into a weepy old woman, but they'd never been to their state capitol. It's like, wow, how is that possible? Everyone needs to visit this building. This is not a historical well, is a historical landmark, but it's also your capital, and it represents so much, and it has so much living history in it. Please, every chance you have to bring a child, anyone, into this building. I love to bring visitors up here because they're not only in awe of how beautiful our capital is and how lovingly we've taken care of it for these many years, but also just the testimony to our republic and how much we value this great state. So we're so thankful to the State Historical Society and the Minnesota State Administrative Staff. And last but not least, let me just say, the reason why I'm here, Minnesota Capitol Security, for arranging alternative parking and ensuring safe logistics to all of us who entered the building. And thank you all for taking time and flexibility on this beautiful Saturday afternoon to come here. There were roadblocks, there were streets closed, literally and figuratively, and I don't even need to tell you what all we've been through in the last year and a half. Thank you all for finding it worth your time and your effort to come here. It really means so much, and I can't tell you how much it means to these young women. Thank you all so much. So I was just checking around for my Dick Cheney cue, and I don't see it. So it's ad lib time, folks. I mentioned earlier that I've had a really unusual career. I'll spare you all the details, but I'm going to tell you a really important lesson that I always say when I speak to young ladies. And that lesson is, well, ladies and gentlemen, I might add, that no matter what you do, being able to present what you believe in your heart clearly and concisely is the most important life skill you will ever develop. And I cannot say that enough. Too many of us have been too shy and too reticent to go out there and say, I know what I believe, and here's why. And the time, folks, is upon us that we all have to be equipped to be on the front line to preserve this great republic, because it won't be here if we don't step up and do that. And I don't say that lightly, and I don't say that to incite anything. I say that because those are the facts. We have let people go for years without studying our Constitution and appreciating all the lives and all the toil and strife that went into creating this remarkable, remarkable, great experiment in our democracy here, and not appreciating it. I embarked upon a class a year and a half ago, right before all the shutdowns started. And I thought, this is either going to be the craziest thing I've ever done. I live in Minneapolis. I'm going to take a class in Denver. Why not? And I'm just one of those people. Ask my husband. I call him long-suffering for a reason. But I took this class because what it said it would teach me is I will understand how to defend our Constitution and how to defend our liberties. How do you not take that? How do you not take 2 days out of every month and fly to Denver to participate in that class? I loved it so much that at the end of the year, I said, I'm going to bring this class to Minnesota. And so that is what I'm working on right now. If you're interested, go to our website. There'll be information in about 45 days up on our website on how you can apply to be in the first class of Minnesota students that will defend our Constitution and defend our liberties. It's a 9-month-long commitment, and I guarantee you, you will not regret it. Every one of us, I feel like a band of brothers after going through this. The most awful thing about the class, I'll get that out there in full disclosure, is every month we have a thing called Speak Out. And you've just finished lunch and you're getting ready for the next presentation, and the director of the class would stand up and say, let's see here. I just read this most interesting article about charter schools. And there's a charter school under investigation, Annette. And you suddenly turned into that 4th grader that's trying to hide from being called to the board during algebra class to show your work. And you have to stand up and, using constitutional principles, talk about that news article that they've just cited that you probably haven't read. And it taught you to not only think quickly on your feet, but it embedded in our head our constitutional principles and what they are, what they stand for, and why they matter. And I'll tell you, by the end of that 9 months, there wasn't anything I was afraid of. He could call on me anytime. And we all stood there and kind of congratulated ourselves. We had some pretty rough moments those first couple months, but after 9 months of watching your classmates struggle and learning even more, and studying the principles, you suddenly felt like, yeah, this is okay. This needs to be done more often. And I'm going to be honored to bring that class here to Minnesota and have 65 graduates every year that will go out and defend the Constitution here all throughout the state. So Freedom Foundation of Minnesota, it's my gratuitous plug here, freedomfoundationofminnesota.com, and we'll have stuff up there very soon on how you can apply and be a member of the class. The other thing I want to talk to you about very briefly is this is a speech contest, and people think, well, you learn to be a good speaker by speaking. And I learned to be a good speaker, okay, somebody who's not afraid to speak, how's that? From one of the best in the world, and that was my boss, Newt Gingrich. And Newt had a sign up in front of our office right when you walked in the door. It was there from day one, and it said, listen, learn, help, lead. And when we all signed on, we had a little lesson from Professor Newt, because that's what he was. And his lesson was, you don't learn anything if you're talking. You only learn by listening. And when you listen, you can learn so much. And when you listen and you learn, only then can you help people. And isn't that really why we're all here? To help others have a better life, have a better quality of life, get along better. Several of the speeches touched on that important point. To help preserve our republic. Those are the important things. And that's where our great leaders come from. Our great leaders weren't all born great orators. I was privileged to spend some time with, I thought about this all week, retired General and former Secretary of State and everything else that he was, Colin Powell, one of the greatest leaders our country has ever been blessed to have. And you know where he did a lot of his listening? He'd invite you over to his house while he repaired his old Volvo, his car. He liked to tinker around under the hood of a car. And at first it's a little unnerving. You think, this guy's chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff and he's fixing a car. That was his hobby. But his hobby was listening and learning from others and learning about your experiences. He was just a remarkable man. And I've often thought about Newt teaching us that, to just shut up and listen. Newt also, by the way, had a habit that no matter how hard I tried during the pandemic, I still can't emulate, but he would read a book a day. Doggone, I've really tried. A book a week is about my speed, unless I'm on vacation. But he read voraciously everything he could get his hands on. And you know what he liked to read? He liked to read biographies of great leaders to find out what were those characteristics that made this person different than this person. What were the characteristics that set apart this one who won in battle and this one who didn't? And he used those. His brain was like a sponge, still is. I still get emails from him at 4 a.m. I love this. It's like once a staffer, always a staffer. And he'll send me an email. What do you think about this? What do you know about this? This week he was on welfare reform and asked some really interesting questions. And it was interesting because I called over here to state government to verify some facts before I sent them on to Newt. And every person I talked to, when you ask, what is the basic criteria for this, would say, it depends. Like, no, I cannot write that back to Newt. I cannot write back, it depends. I need an answer. So then you learn to ask those questions. And you only learn to ask those penetrating questions that are going to get you to the truth that he wants by listening to what they're saying and then learning as you go to say, okay, I see where we're going here. Let's follow this. It's an incredible skill to develop. Way back when dinosaurs roamed the earth and I was in college, we had to take logic. Now, I wish I would have taken Latin. So kudos to you young ladies. That's a remarkable skill. But logic was, shall we say, a challenge for me. And yet, I look back on it now and think, that was probably the most vital class that I took in learning how to think critically and how to ask those right questions. But Newt also will tell you, and I think this is so interesting because he's on Fox News about every half hour, turn off the TV and read a book. Read an essay. Read someone you don't agree with. Read their biography and learn what made them who they were. And the more you absorb all of these different things, the more you realize how complex our leaders are, especially our great leaders. If you would have told me that Colin Powell would spend his weekends tinkering under the hood of a car, I would have said, yeah, right. In my mind, he was off like at the Naval War College teaching a class. No, he was doing the opposite. He was listening and talking to just random individuals that had something he wanted to learn about. And that's what made him such a superior leader, both in battle and in peacetime. Just a remarkable man. And I think it's very interesting in this day, and one of the young ladies also talked about this, where we are in our bubbles, where we have our political ideology that we develop, and we tend to think that there are absolute truths, mine, and then everybody else's. And it's remarkable when you are challenged in those beliefs and how difficult it is when you suddenly start to realize, I have to defend what I believe. How do I learn to do that? And you do that by listening to the other side. It's a really, really remarkable challenge that I throw out to you today, but one that you won't ever regret. And you learn so much. I get a kick out of the legislature. My husband's a lobbyist, so sometimes we watch it. I'll leave out my editorial comment. We have to watch it from home because they're not allowed to come up here in person. And I'm always amazed at the patience of Job, of all of you who serve and continue to stand up for your beliefs and go in there every day and fight for those principles that matter to you so passionately, knowing what you're up against. But you do it because you're there to serve and to make our republic, our state, a better place. And I tip my hat to you because that is a remarkable skill that you too have learned, to listen to the other side and to learn about, maybe there is a valid point, especially when we're talking about problems today aren't so easy anymore. You talk about welfare reform, which is what Newt was asking me questions about. Boy, there's just no easy answers to some of those really tough questions. And you realize, but by listening to the other side and working together, I bet we can solve them, and I bet we will. And I'll bet you that Minnesota will lead on that issue, unlike many other states that have just kind of given up that fight and said it's not worth fighting anymore. Because we do want everyone to have a prosperous future and to have that equal opportunity that every one of us has had. So I tip my hat to all of you for listening to hours of endless debate. I don't know how you do it, but it's quite a remarkable skill. And when I say turn off the TV, I mean turn off the TV and put down your iPad and put down your phone, put it all down. And go out and volunteer your time. Do whatever you can to get involved in your community and learn a little bit more about what's going on in your community. I cannot recommend it enough. One thing I will say about wearing masks, I can't say anything really good about them, but I will say one thing. I didn't talk as much. You listen a lot more when you got a mask on, mainly because you can't understand each other. You just go, I used to always joke my first job was at McDonald's. They had a brand new drive-through, and they said, "Oh, you have a commanding voice. You shall work our drive-through." Okay, then. Well, then you see Charlie Brown, where you have the teacher up there, wah, 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 and you realize that's what I sounded like to everybody who pulled up. But I'm making quite a reach here, but there is something to joining with your community and listening to other people speak and learning what their concerns are and being a part of the solution rather than sitting at home and watching the same TV shows as all your people that already believe what you believe and not challenging your beliefs and not challenging what could be better for our country and what could be better for our state. That's really what we call all these young ladies to do as they go forward here today. And I cannot tell you enough how important it is. You know, I grew up when my husband and I have this conversation a lot. I mean, we had, I don't know, I think maybe 8 channels of TV. We did not have 400. Yeah, it's like the dark ages, isn't it? It's like, whoo, 8 channels of TV. We had an antenna, too. It was a real different time. But we didn't have handheld devices. Even in our college dorm, if you were going out and you wanted to meet your girlfriends, you had to write a note on their door. Think about that. It sounds like hieroglyphics, doesn't it? To say, I'm going to be at Sparky's, see you at 7. That's how we communicated. We couldn't text, we couldn't call, we didn't have any of that technology. But it taught us to maybe communicate a little better in person and to deal with people. And we also learned so much about how hard it is to communicate with one flat sentence in a text and how hurtful that can sometimes be. And to really, really, people always tease boomers about using emojis too much. But let me tell you, there's something about a flat sentence that can be read 2 or 3 different ways in a text message that isn't what you meant to communicate. And that makes all the world a difference. It really is a big deal. So when you think about all the wonderful things that technology, I'm not a Luddite, I do it all. But when you think about all the wonderful ways we have to communicate today versus what we had even 10, 15 years ago, it's a gift, a privilege, and a big responsibility, and that we use those well. Now I'm going to take one quick look behind me, because I think we're getting very close to the end. They're having very important whispers back and forth, which always tells me the end is near. I have the end. You probably aren't interested in this, though, right? Y'all just want to hear me ramble on, don't you? Well, we have thanked our finalists. We have thanked everyone who participated. We have thanked the judges, and now here's the moment why you're all here. We're going to give away some scholarships. We've been waiting these final results, and as I have them, I'm going to ask each competitor to come forward. Each will receive a scholarship award and a trophy. Now, here's the catch. To conclude this final round, there's only 3 participants. Once I announce who came in second, you're going to know who won. So will she. Could you, to make sure that we give the same equal representation to the 3rd place, the 2nd place, and the 1st place finisher, please don't erupt. Let the 2nd place, let her have her moment too, and then we'll equally honor the 1st place winner. We're going to take a picture with each one of the girls, but I want to make sure each one of the girls has their moment. So with that, I bet you're wondering what we have here. I have the finalist in 3rd place, and this is a $1,000 scholarship award. And now, bear with me here, because I have to get out the big check. And the right trophy. And wouldn't you know it, they're in the wrong order. Okay, is this not something awesome? This is for our 3rd place winner, and our 3rd place winner is contestant number 104, Emily Page Lawrence from Woodbury. Okay, now I've got to do this right. Congratulations. This is for you. You get to take this home. What a great job you did. Congratulations. Thank you. Okay, and for our 2nd place winner, make sure I've got the right ones. Our 2nd place winner is contestant number 105, Nova Singh from Long Lake. Congratulations. What a great job you did. This is for you. Congratulations. What a great job. Well, and now I think we all know we have a 1st place winner, and that is Lillian Ray M. from Chisago City, contestant. Congratulations. Right over there. What a great job. Congratulations. As we conclude today's program, oh my gosh, I have 8 minutes to spare. Should I just keep talking? Just kidding. As we conclude today's program here in the Rotunda, I want to invite the Laetare, that's my Latin I learned today, singers. They will come and join us as we exit the Capitol. I have to remind everyone, please take all of your stuff with you. We have promised the Capitol security will be out of here by 4 o'clock. According to my trusty watch, we have a few minutes to visit. And may I just say congratulations to all the participants here. If you have a chance to have pictures taken or anything with these young ladies, please join with them. But thank you to everyone who participated. Thank you once again to all of our judges, all the volunteers who made this possible. Please join us with the singers who will come forward. And I believe they are going to, well, they're going to sing something they're going to choose. But I'll bet it's really good and patriotic. Thank you all for being here, and thank you all for coming.
We are going to be singing America the Beautiful, just one verse, and then the Minnesota State song.
For
Thank you so much. Thank you all so much. Have a lovely Saturday and a safe trip home. Thank you.